minutes were sent out. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes of January 19th?
Seeing none, Mayor, I would make a motion that we go ahead and approve the minutes as submitted.
I have a motion from Paul,
I'll second.
second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And on the agenda tonight, we have an update from Whitney Lubers on Dubois County tourism. Evening, Whitney.
Evening.
Is the light on, Whitney? Is the speaker on?
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I just wanted to kind of give a little update on Dubois County tourism, everything we have going on, and the direction in our focus areas. And at any time, if you guys have any questions, please just feel free to communicate those questions to me, and I can kind of answer them as I go. So I first wanted to start out just to kind of let everyone know and inform everyone the impact of tourism for Dubois County. A lot of people don't realize that it has a total economic impact for travel spend of $96.6 million. So that's in tourism spending. That was the 2019 figures, which is our most recent Rockport analytic data. And with that, we have been receiving some really nice trend in growth for tourism spend. So we had a 6.6% growth when referring to 2018 figures. And in front of you, I kind of have this handout here. You can see the different figures throughout the years. I go back to 2013, so you can kind of see a 6-year trend from 2013 to 2019. And with that, in 2013, we were at 65 million. So in the last 6 years, the tourism spending has increased by 48.6%. So we are on a very good trend. If you compare our figures to the state of Indiana and Indianapolis, we have a higher percentage growth. Quite a bit. So the state of Indiana, they have a 4.1% average in tourism spend growth, and Indianapolis has a 4.5%. And like I stated, we are at the 6.1% there. And you can also see our tourism report card above, so you can kind of see where we rank for per capita ranking, as well as growth ranking and different elements there. I did kind of want to communicate the importance of tourism. So if tourism didn't exist in Dubois County, each of the households in the area, each family would have to spend had to pay additional $534 per year in taxes to maintain the current tax level. So it's very important and vital to our communities. It supports over 1,000 jobs. Travelers support over 1,000 jobs. Nancy, earlier this morning, you kind of asked what the breakdown in that $96.6 million was, and I can kind of let you know what those breakdowns were. So they categorize them with lodging, food and beverage, shopping, transportation and entertainment, with 31.5% of that going towards shopping, 28.3 with food and beverage. Or I'm sorry, I said percentage. I didn't mean to say percentage. $31.5 million is the shopping spend. 28.3 million is in food and beverage. 17.3 million is in lodging. 15.8 $1 million is in transportation, so that's like the different gas stations and such, and then $3.7 million in entertainment spend for our county. So that's kind of how it's broken down. Rockport Analytics, they are the ones that give us this data. So it is a data company that compiles this information for us. Tourism is the 9th largest industry in Dubois County, 8th if you don't consider government. So very, very high up on the list. I, of course, will keep government in there. But just to kind of let you know some of our focus areas, we are in a different transition year. So 2020 hit us pretty hard. We are funded through innkeeper's tax. So 5% of anyone that stays in the county in the lodging, we get 5% of that revenue that's generated there. So with that, we did see a 38% decrease in our funding for 2020. We had to really look at our budget, try to find ways that we could cut back. We did have a reduction of staff. We also had a lot of event cancellations, so we trying to stay in the forefront of it and figuring out those different areas, as well as rethink our marketing plan and kind of focus on the outdoor recreation and the things that people still could do while they're in the area. So we had a weird kind of year, obviously, everyone did, in 2020, and it also kind of threw the motor coach market off. So a lot of the partners that we had in the past, they unfortunately had to close. So we have a lot less contacts in that market. We are now trying to reach out, find those different individuals, get more relationship building. We also are in the process of developing our key performance indicators. So we need to look at where our website performance is at. There's been so many changes. In 2017, I know Kevin knows this, we had a huge change in how Google ranked us. And just across the board, they changed how our site was being seen. We had to rethink. We had to quickly put together a new website in 2018. It wasn't perfect. It was a fix. And now we're really rebooting our website, refocusing on those efforts. We partnered with Google Analytic Company because we realized people are not using our website as much as they're using Google to ask those questions. So we partnered with a Google accredited company so that they could look at all of our different businesses and really focus on getting the correct information on Google listings. So they really upped our ranking through our website by doing that as well. And right now we are also working with 26 Digital. They are doing a digital audit on us. They will be giving us a list of priorities, kind of letting us know where we're kind of behind, where we're ahead, where we can kind of go from here. So we are just in the process of, like I said, doing a strategic plan, getting those key performance indicators, seeing where we want to move forward from there, and really get those SMART goals lined up. So that's another focus area that I don't know if you guys heard this, but we are moving our operations. So we are moving to where the old Adventures Recreation and Gear was located at, right in the old Jasper district across from the conference center and along the river there, so along 3rd Street. We really feel like this is the right move. It's a very tough decision. We love partnering with the Dubois County Museum. They have been amazing, to say the least. It was just we weren't getting the foot traffic. Year over year, we just get less and less foot traffic, and we started just seeing mostly people going to the museum. And we had some conversations with the Jasper Arts Center. They let us know that they saw a 500% increase in foot traffic when they moved locations. And we really want to be, if we want to be a visitor center, we thought we had to go to Visitors Go. So that's why we kind of started pushing that initiative. And we are going to be focusing on visitor experiences. So with that, we are really going to try to have those one-on-one connections, let the individuals that are visiting know everything that would be interesting to them, help them extend their stay, come back more often, and really kind of focus on who's already here and making them come back again. So visitor experience is going to be huge.
And that's when, do you make that move in April?
Yes, I actually just talked to the contractor before this meeting. So we're looking at, yes, mid-March, probably more like early April before we're actually there. So, yep, right along. We're about a month away. We're very excited. We are going to be focusing on signage is a big part of what we've been looking at. This has been on our radar for quite some time, is the wayfinding signage aspect. So we do have some budget allotted for improving our wayfinding signage, as well as the visitor kiosks. We are in the final stages of getting those designed and redone. And we'd be getting rid of, if anyone ever saw them, they had that plexiglass and different things like that. We found that it did kind of collect dirt. it kind of cracked, it got different things, so we decided to make the whole thing vinyl metal. It's going to be a complete metal vinyl piece that gets changed out every year to match our visitor's guide, and the information would stay updated that way. So that will be in each of the communities moving forward, and we will be sharing that design with anyone that would like to have the kiosk design for their website, for any kind of digital or electronic kiosk that they would like to have it on, or anything like that, because it's just kind of pushing out the information of what all our Dubois County has to offer. I kind of went back and forth here. So we will continue to do a lot of our marketing and branding that we've done in the past. We do a lot of social media and behavioral targeting campaigns. We will continue doing so and really focus on what that audit gives us too for good direction on where to go from here. We will be using similar looks in all of our advertisements. We have a certain brand look that we go for, and we want people to know that it's us immediately, that people that know us, and kind of hit them in all different on their ads with all different kinds of categories, such as like home of music festivals, home of historic attractions, those different key elements, family home and family fun, but then also have a similar look that kind of crosses over so they know that this is all the same destination we're talking about here. So we'll be continuing that focus. Sports marketing, golf is huge. So Sultan's Run is adding all kinds of amazing things for our communities. They are putting in an entertainment center that there'll be like virtual golf, virtual sports, any kind of sports. There's football, different things like that. Huge indoor facility, as well as they're going to be getting some villas in, and they are also adding a lodge. So with that, that's going to be great for tourism to have some more assets that we can promote, and we're very excited about that. We also got the new HTK Airsoft, those paint guns. It's the largest indoor facility, I believe, in the state of Indiana. I believe that's what it is, but it's really exciting to have that offering as well. And of course, we kind of are excited that Tell City Pretzels are moving to Jasper. And so there's just like a lot of new activity. The old one-room schoolhouse was new, so we really, we're excited about what attractions we have, and we'll be pushing the promotion of those attractions very heavily. So. Also, with sports marketing, League Stadium is a big focus area of ours. We do have a League Stadium committee. We went and visited the Field of Dreams in Iowa to see what they are doing, because they get 800,000 visitors a year. We want that many visitors. We would love to figure out how to get that type of situation. We feel like we have more to offer. A League of Their Own was higher grossing film than A Field of Dreams, and so we're really pushing some initiatives, trying to get a gift shop going, and as well as trying to get an MLB game, Major League Baseball game. So that would be huge for us. So we're really trying to push those initiatives. We have a committee formed, and trying different avenues to kind of get talking to the right people for those. We do also do an advocacy campaign. So we found that word of mouth is still huge for us. So people trust when they hear things from others more than whenever they see it on the computer or in other outlets. So advocacy is a focus area of ours. We want to tell the locals what all we have going on. We want them to spread their word and kind of tell their family and friends as well. So we are doing an every door direct mail piece. We send our visitors guide to every resident in Dubois County, and we ask in a letter for them to be an ambassador for the county to spread the word. You be a visitor in your own backyard. Keep those restaurants open. Keep those shops open. This is important, because if we don't have these attractions, we're not going to get the visitation. We're going to be losing out a lot. So we do focus some efforts on advocacy and try to get the information to the residents themselves directly to their door. So we do a lot of cooperative planning as well. We are looking to have some hotelier and lodging meetings like we've done in the past, but we also are a part of a lot of different committees. So we are part of Southern Indiana Regional Marketing Co-op. board member of that. Explore Southern Indiana, board member. Patoka Lake Area year-round, treasurer of that one. Indiana Tourism Association, board member. Redevelop Old Jasper Action Coalition, we're a board member of that. Radius Southern Indiana, we're part of the committee there. Downtown Merchants, we go to both Huntingburg and Jasper Downtown Merchants meetings. Dubois Strong, where we're a board member. Indiana State Festival Association, very strong connection there. Indiana Destination Development Corporation, Indiana Foodways Alliance, Heart of Jasper, Destination Huntingburg, League Stadium Committee, both chambers of commerce, and then we're a part of a lot of event committees as well. We find it's very important to be a part of these conversations. We want to find out what everyone's doing, promote the things that are related to tourism, and kind of keep our thumb on the pulse of what's going on in these communities so that we can better be an advocate of what we have going on. We also have a nonprofit that is kind of a branch developed underneath Visit Dubois County called DC Multisport. We do all of the administrative duties for DC Multisport, but it does have its own separate board as well. It's a nonprofit organization that puts on events such as the Heartland Half Marathon. They've done Dubois County Youth Triathlon. We've done we're bringing back the Parkland 6-hour endurance relay. We do our different cabin fever hikes. We do the color fun run. So there's a lot of different events that are tied with DC Multisport. And each of those events, we are able to give back to different charities. So this last year, we marked over $200,000 that we were able to give back to different community or different nonprofits. So we are very, very excited about that. Down below, you can kind of see some of our past and future projects and events. This is things that we are connected with, but also what are going on in our community. So it's not all our things. It's more of what we have kind of solidified as being really great projects that have led a lot of impact for tourism. So you can kind of look at those at your leisure. Obviously, we're very excited about the Cultural Center, Alexander Schoolhouse. We had the Rally Point events bringing in the rodeo and concert, the Boots and Bulls, and the RWB Fest, which they let us know the lineup. We're not allowed to share it, but it's very, very exciting what the RWB Fest is going to be bringing this year. I think everyone will be very excited to see those, 90s country artists that are coming to our area. We have Destination Huntingburg bringing on their 4th Fridays entertainment, Heart of Jasper events, including the downtown chowdowns, fish habitats and restocking. That was a focus area of ours as well, to bring in those more fishing tournaments, and then Jumping Jasper. And then our future projects, I kind of mentioned our new tourism center, Sultan's Run additions, League Stadium updates. Rojack is putting on a great initiative with bringing a huge Christmas feel to our whole area. I just label it as Winter Wonderland because it doesn't have a name yet, but it's coming. And so Jasper is going to really look like the Christmas town that I think it has a huge potential to be one of the best in the state, really. And then we also, we're going to be focusing on our signage, the MLB game. We're excited about the future possibilities of the aquatic center and ready outcomes. We don't know what those will be yet. So we're kind of excited, but we want to kind of keep that on our forefront of our minds. We are hiring. We are adding a 3rd person back to our team. We have historically had a 3-person operations. We did hold off just because of budget constraints that 2020 gave us. So with that, we are back to our full swing of being able to hire on our 3rd person. And we had some really great candidates. We're narrowing it down, and very excited soon to announce who that new addition would be. So we also I kind of want to let you know who our board members are. So we have Diane Hopenjans as our president. She's been a part of our committee over 20 years. Gail Hettinger as vice president. Jim McFall as treasurer. Kurt Vonderheide as secretary. Mary Clem, she's with the Days Inn, managing the Days Inn. Rachel Steckler, she's with the city of Huntingburg. Chris Treader is with Sultan's Run. And then Hemong Shaw is our advisory member. And just to kind of let you know, like, what we're about, what our mission is, I'll just read this off. The fundamental mission of Dubois County Visitor Center and Tourism Commission is to invite people to be our guests, encourage them to stay, and to return again. This is accomplished by showcasing our heritage, highlighting our family-oriented destinations, building cooperation with surrounding communities, and spreading our welcoming spirit, thus enhancing the social and economic growth of the area. And that spreading our welcoming spirit, this move to the new visitor center, I think we're really going to be able to even achieve that more. So we're very excited. And then our slogan's create a memory. We're committed to creating a memory. We really want people to go home with a big smile on their face and think about all the fun they had while they experienced Dubois County. Any questions?
Are you tired?
I'm sorry, I talked a lot there, sorry.
Your enthusiasm and your passion for this is very noticeable, and we really appreciate what you've done, the fact that you took the time to come in here and give us an update.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to, because I do really want to kind of spread what all great things we have going on in our communities.
Area, and just glad to have you promoting it, so.
Good job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Bill Kaiser. A little update on the Mid-States Corridor.
All right.
Thought I did.
I just.
While Bill's setting up, did you decide what you wanted to do with that resolution?
No, that's about it. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead with that.
Okay. I didn't know where you wanted to put it.
I got one from Pat at
Do you need any?
JPS saying, wow. I agree. Where would you put it?
Want to put it over here by Alan, maybe?
We can go this way.
That would be better.
Sorry about that. Good evening. Bill Kaiser here on behalf of the Mid-States Corridor RDA. I know it's been a while since we've been here. We want to come back and provide a short update. Mark Schrader, chairman of the RDA, had planned on being here this evening, had another unfortunate conflict and could not come. But we've talked about this stuff, so the things I'm going to tell you are things that we discussed in order to get you up to date. To get back up a little bit, give you a little history. 2017, the Mid-States Corridor RDA was formed. 2018, we had an interlocal agreement in which we proceeded to discuss a joint funding operation. And remember, this is a one-of-a-kind, unique circumstance where the RDA was formed in order to pursue a study on an infrastructure improvement plan, north-south corridor, going through Dubois County from the Ohio River up to a connection to Interstate 69. So in order to fund that study, we had local funding. Half the local funding was brought by our governments, $3.5 million. Half the funding was provided by our private enterprises and companies. That interlocal agreement was the agreement by which the government groups came together to pledge the money to pay for the study over the course of time. In 2018, we actually entered into a memorandum of understanding, the RDA did, with NDOT in order to proceed forward with the study. In 2019, we proceeded, NDOT let the contract to Lockmuller Group, and that study began. The expectation was that study would take 2 years, and in 2021, we'd have a final outcome from the study. COVID came in the middle and a couple other things. Now the current expectation is by the end of 2022, the Tier 1 study will be completed. The board members for the RDA are Mark Schrader, David Drake, Scott Blasey, Sue Elsperman, and Ken Mulzer Jr. The member organizations are Dubois County, Spencer County, the city of Huntingburg, and the city of Jasper. In order to form an RDA, you have to have 2 counties, and that was Spencer County and Dubois County coming together. The city of Jasper and the city of Huntingburg then joined in as member organizations to be the original 4 members that started this RDA. It is a single purpose RDA to study this infrastructure. That doesn't mean that the RDA couldn't undertake other activities, but at this point, the laser focus has been to review and have the study completed in order to look at what the north-south infrastructure for traffic could be, and that's the way it has continued to proceed. So I wanted to give you a little bit update on that piece. I also wanted to tell you that during the course of this time, the budget originally was a contract not to exceed $6.5 million. The dollars that were pledged, both by the government and the private parties, has all been received. That money is in the door. We've continued to proceed forward. As you might also expect that during the course of time, because of the additional time, costs have increased. Chairman Schrader went to the NDOT and said, look, COVID wasn't our fault, and some of the other things that have happened in the interim weren't our responsibility. NDOT agreed that they would hold the line on our contract, so all additional costs to complete this study are going to be absorbed by NDOT, which was important for us not to have to come back to the city of Jasper or to the other governments or to the private parties who had contributed, so that we could hold our word that we'd have a Tier 1 study completed at the projected cost, at least from our local piece. You should know that there is not another study like this. There's not another project like this where local government and local businesses and citizens have come together in order to try to resolve a traffic problem that we have here on 231 in Dubois County in particular. NDOT is stating that this is the kinds of things they'd like to see, where communities come together to try to solve their problems and bring those solutions to NDOT, for consideration. So we're still a whiles away from being completed, and things here, but we are being applauded by state government for undertaking the attempt to recognize and identify, what the potential solutions are to our own local traffic questions and issues. The other thing is that the study itself is certainly dependent upon not only the information that Lottmuller is obtaining and looking for, but will be subsequently subject to whatever the funding available for the solutions are that. The good news is that recently the governor did identify $75 million, for infrastructure improvement along 231. It's been clearly signaled to us at the RDA that the efforts by the RDA and by our community to bring to attention the concerns and issues we have with US 231 were a primary reason that the governor and NDOT recognized that we have an immediate problem, that we need infrastructure improvement to our north-south corridor, and that was the reason we were singled out, for the $75 million improvement. And those improvements are supposed to start this fall. They're studying now. We had, out of the Vincennes district, a backlog of projects, for improving 231 that had not been completed because of funding. Our understanding is that those projects will be expedited, subject to engineering, and will start. So I think we're going to see some things going on.
Bill, what's the scope from where to where on 231 that they're going to focus on?
Well, that's not quite 100% clear, but I think it's Dubois County into Martin County is what they're looking at. So that's what we've been told.
Get on to 69 then.
It could be all the way up the way. I think they're looking at ways to make 231 better, right, and improve that. There certainly are existing issues that need to be resolved, and so they talked about a number of different things, but did not have a whole bunch of specifics as to what was going on, besides the projects that had been on the books at the Vincennes district to be addressed. But the idea was looking at that, and I think the other thing, Kevin, is that and the issues that were raised, at least preliminarily, as part of the study of this Tier 1, there were traffic issues or congestion issues that were identified between what NDOT and Lockmuir were talking about. I can't profess to tell you what those were because we don't get to see all that information, as they're working through those studies and questions. I mean, NDOT is working hand in hand because Lockmuir is a contractual party, a consultant to NDOT, not to the RDA. The RDA really is more of a fiscal agent. It's sitting there, it's paying the bill. So if you think about the way that relationship works, NDOT has a process by which it selects approved contractors to perform this kind of study. What happens is Lockmuir sends an invoice to NDOT. NDOT sends the invoice to the RDA and says, hey, we have an invoice to pay. Now, they certainly have given us a scope of when those payments are going to happen and how's that going to happen, but we don't see the results of the work that Lockmuir is completing as it moved forward, nor do we know the results of the traffic studies or the environmental studies or other things they do. All we know is that certain stages have been completed as that course of that. So as to the question you're asking, we've asked that question, how does it happen? When does it happen? What are you going to be doing? I don't know that they have a definitive list of that pieces other than those projects, and that it's covering Dubois County up into Martin County. So,
Is that only on 231 then, that they're doing that?
I don't know the answer to that either, Dave. I think that to the extent that they're trying to improve traffic flow along 231, to the extent there were ancillary projects that would help, onboarding and ingressing 231, I would expect that they may have latitude. So I think there wasn't a number of specific projects that said, hey, this money's to fund those projects. It was to fund generally the improvement of traffic along 231. So I think that's still to be done. That money gets spent in the next 4 years as they're improving that piece of that. Here, the question is this always. We'll see what the outcome is of the Tier 1 EI study, but the fact of the matter is we'll all continue to drive on 231 down through the middle of Jasper to Huntingburg and down through Huntingburg, right? So that road isn't changing. That road certainly could use improvement, and the expectation and the hope is that part of that money continues to improve the road we're going to continue to drive on the next 30 or 40, 50 years, depending on how old you are, I guess. So that's the update of that piece. I did also want to give you a little update further on just how this, so this is a little bit of a retread for you for some of the things.
Thank you, sir.
If I had known that Lisa was here, I could have put it on a flash drive and ran the.
Thank you.
That works out pretty good. Wow. Okay. So this is just a short overview. You can see the first page we've talked about generally, and that is the two counties that are involved, along with the city of Jasper and the city of Huntingburg. And the Mid-States Corridor, this study is a 12-county study area: Warwick, Spencer, Perry, Pike, Dubois, Crawford, Davies, Martin, Orange, Lawrence, Greene, and Monroe. So in connection to that study, there was really a 12-county study area. If you turn to the second page, this slide shows you that, kind of where we were and where we come to now. When this Tier 1 study started, there were 10 possible routes, 28 alternatives of those 10 routes. That got reduced down to 5 possible routes, 10 different alternatives, and somewhere around April 15th, we're going to have a recommended route from Lockmuir Group that'll be announced. If you turn to the next page, and I've got a larger thing to show you, it shows you the current 5 possible routes. You have a red, yellow, green, blue, purple, and we'll look at those later just so you know that that's a summary of the routes. One of the things that happened as this study was going on, there were a number of other groups that kind of looked at the economic development impact. So Orange County, Lawrence County, Dubois County looked at the economic impact. This slide is from the study that Dubois Strong did. They had a group come in, and what it showed was that this route, this Mid-States Corridor route with about potentially 50 miles of additional roadway, depending on what route was selected, would provide a route that's only about 5 minutes longer from a route that would go up I-65 if you were coming out of Nashville. So from a traffic standpoint, there is ability both from those folks who live in this county, to go from this county to other points, or for people who are coming in, bringing, product, finished product, raw materials, whatever that is. It provides a huge logistic boost. The slide after that.
You said April 15th, one route. So of these 5, then the one route would be recommended. And is that a broad route area or more specific?
Yeah, so Nancy, that's right. So the expectation is, there'll be a route selected. That could be any of those 5 routes or any combination of those routes. Yeah. So, and I'll go through that too. I'm sorry, to go through the maps a little more specifically. But yeah, so it'll be a route. It'll still be a broad area, right? So what happens is, to answer that question, is that there'll be a recommended route. And that route recommendation will still be subject to additional study. It'll still be subject to public comment. It'll still be subject to agency comment. And depending on what route selected and, whether that's, how much that's using existing terrain versus new terrain, those are all questions that'll be proposed. And that'll be a broader area. To the extent that you get to Tier 2, which means you're actually building a different road, and Tier 2, Nancy, is where they would go down to say, from say like 2,000 feet wide swath to 300 feet, So if you think about that, if you think of a Super 2 or something, or roadway, you really get down to a much narrower piece. But that's when they would decide more definitively any path of any specific part of the route. To the extent it's not on an existing roadway like 231 or 50 or 56 or something, depending on which the route would go, or an improvement to that already existing roadway.
Is the state required to take that recommendation then?
Well, no. The question is this. The state's going to receive that recommendation. So back to the question, Dave, to your point. Here's the way, this is all subject to federal process. So this is a Tier 1 EIS study. It's a NEPA study. It's the same study that was done when I-69 was done. Just to give you perspective about the process and the seriousness of this piece, there is no other Tier 1 EIS study going on in the state. The last Tier 1 EIS study that NDOT tells us went on was the I-69 study. So this is a reason it's $6.5 million. It's a very extensive, expensive study that now will take almost 3 years, right, to go through the process, subject to a partial break for COVID. So it's not like adding a roadway, right? It's an important traffic corridor study. But to the question you're asking about the process, that is that April 15th there's an announcement. After that, there are public hearings, so groups that are concerned or questions or just whatever that may be, there'll be at least 2 public hearings where they'll take information in. Then agencies, both state agencies and federal agencies, will also have the additional opportunity to comment on concerns or questions about that. All of that information then has to be reviewed, taken into consideration by Lottmuller. They'll have to revise their recommendation, alter their recommendation, whatever is necessary to come to a final EIS report. The expectation is that takes about 6 months. So the thought process is that October or November of this year, you'll have a final EIS. And I say all that not knowing what route it is, how much is new terrain, or any new terrain, or is it all old terrain, existing roadways? We don't know the answer to that question. But then to the second part of that is that NDOT takes it in, receives it, reviews it, and then to the extent that there is money to go forward or improvements that have to be made, whether it's building road or improving road, it's subject to the next part is having funding to do whatever else they'll say. So one hope and expectation is that depending on where that route is that the $75 million will help both improve current roadway and the expected part of the roadway, wherever that, well, we don't know that question. So, which goes back to maybe, Kevin, your question is, the $75 million is to improve 231, right? Is 231 part of it? What part of it is? We don't know the answer to that question. So it could change potentially depending on what's going on with the announcement of the recommendation.
One more question.
Sure.
Are the current roads considered to be used as the mid-state corridor yet too, or are they out?
Well, they had to. No, you're exactly right. So, I mean, the range of options is to do nothing, right? That the study can say, look, you don't have a traffic problem. Your traffic is fine. You could do that. It could be better managing the traffic on the existing roadways, improving the existing roadways. It could be improving part of the roadway. It could be, using part of the roadway or some new roadway. It could be all new roadway. So there's a whole range. The study is, again, a very exhaustive study, but yeah, and so it could be, from do nothing to potentially build an interstate. Now, I will tell you that they took right off the top, we're not getting an interstate, right? That option was thrown out for a lot of reasons, including way too expensive and not necessary. So, so our range got moved down. So, I say all this about the route question because we don't really know about what that will say and what they will say as the location of the route and/or, if there's any new terrain road or not.
Just a clarification on the April 15th decision of route. That's a broad route. On the October, the final environmental impact study, will that be the narrowed?
No, it won't be. So you won't get to a narrower, you'll still have a broad area and a recommended piece, but not until they would begin stage 2. Well, I say that, Mayor, it's possible that if you're on a portion of an existing roadway, that you kind of know what's there, right? I mean, so you might, by virtue of the route selected, know that what's going to happen or what could happen, right? And I expect, again, not having seen a report like this, I would expect we may know that, but I don't know that for certain. But if it's a new terrain area, then it still could be 1,000 feet, but you won't know until you get to Tier 2 when you actually decide how the road's going to get built, what property is going to be acquired, where it's actually going to be, and that's when you actually get on ground to engineer, right? At this point, they haven't gone out to walk these routes and stuff. It's just a general path piece. They will actually have engineers, that go out and survey and look and discuss. One of the things that has come up during the conversations is, as they're picking the question, looking at the costs and benefits and the safety and the different things, is, look, we don't purposely try to go through a house, right, through a cemetery. We're trying to avoid those questions and issues, but those are questions and issues that NDOT will decide, just like when it decides to expand some intersection and, take part of somebody's front yard or something like that, and they're trying to, work through somebody's driveway and questions. So those are questions that'll come up down the road depending on where the route's selected.
So Tier 2 then, this leads to Tier 2, which is another study involving more engineering. And then, and I don't mean to...
No, you go. No, I don't want. We're retreading some. I don't want to waste your time either.
Tier 2
yes.
Could take another
2 years.
2 years.
Generally, I say that, Nancy. So Tier 1, we were requesting an expedited Tier 1 question, which was 2 years, because generally this could take longer than 2 years. They said they could get done in 2 years. Actually, it didn't happen in 2 years. What they say is that a Tier 2 study takes about 2 years. And we can look at this map now too. Maybe now's the time to write to it. So if you think about what's happening, what I've done is shown you the I borrowed these from Lockmuller Group. These are not my, I borrowed Lockmuller. And these are publicly available at the Mid-States Corridor office out at VUJC. They have office hours, and there's other maps, and so anybody can go out and look at these maps. These are existing maps. So this map shows the route that starts, at the Ohio River, coming up through Spencer County, the existing 231 route. So there's proposed no change. We have a very nice Super 2 running up from the Ohio River. We have a really great bridge over the Ohio River to go up through to 64. So this is this is Lockmuller's drawing of the possibilities. We're talking about the 5 routes. So you're coming into Dubois County. This is at the bottom. This is Interstate 64. So as you come across 64, again, the same. This is really the same mapping that's on your handout, but where the route could go east or west around Jasper and Huntingburg, and then north of Jasper could split off to Route O or Route P, or Route C or Route B, going west or east depending upon what would happen. So I'm just refreshing your knowledge of probably what you've seen these maps before. These are not new maps. And then if the route selected, the route studies would go east. There's a route O that goes along 56, and or a route M that would go around up across the top on 50. So that's which would both connect up to 37. The first connecting up at Mitchell, the second connecting up towards Bedford, and then following 37 up to hit 69. And then this last board is just the same drawing that's in the handout that you have in front of you, which just kind of shows you all the routes on one piece that are currently being considered. So some version of one of these routes will be recommended on April 15th. I say all that because, I know that there's been some delays, and we thought for sure that even with COVID, we'd have a route selected by the end of the year. With the $75 million that got announced, they wanted to make certain they were incorporating those proposed changes and amendments into the study as to how they would impact any one of these routes or no routes across the board, so that they had to retread and do some more review and engineering to studying to do that piece. And so from my understanding, the way this happens, again, first time involved in a process like this, but that on April 15th or thereabouts, this study right now is put together by Lockmuller Group. It's been reviewed and discussed with NDOT and with the federal highway people in Indiana. But the federal highway people have to send this whole report out to DC. DC gets at least 30 days to look at it, comment it, talk about it. They're the national experts out in DC. They look at this same report. When they have approved it as being accurate and in compliance with the NEPA study things, then it is eligible for listing with the Federal Register. As you may know, all federal laws, programs, there's a major thing, just like the legals you see in the back of the Herald, only on steroids. The Federal Register lists all the federal projects across the whole country. This will be like a public notice, but it'll be registered in the Federal Register. And when that announcement is coming out in the Federal Register, which is expected to happen around April 15th, then NDOT at the same time, I'm understanding, I say sometime, I'm pretty sure it's about the same time, will be released publicly to the rest of us. Then we'll know what the recommendation is. After that, they'll establish the public hearing dates and the rest of the schedule they'll need to do to complete the review input process in order to get to a final Tier 1 study sometime in the October-November frame. Again, they tell us it takes about 6 months to listen, hear, absorb, evaluate, and then update the draft EIS study to get to a final EIS study for the project.
And then, Bill, who initiates the Tier 2? The state of Indiana?
The state of Indiana, yeah. So the part of the question, Nancy, will be what I've learned generally is in INDOT, when a project comes on, you get in the queue and you wait about 6 years or 7 years till funding happens, because there's projects all the time in the queue. And so the same way for this project, we get in the queue. The only thing that would potentially expedite is that we have, to the extent the $75 million, depending on how it gets proposed and depending where the route is, right? If the route runs right down 231, then we already have $75 million. If it's somewhere else, that's the question, right? So, but you have to have funding. If you don't have funding to move on to Tier 2, you don't move on. They won't allow you to undertake the study about what needs to be done, either to improving the existing roadway or new roadway without funds, because then you would be spending engineering dollars that may sit on the table somewhere for years, 6 years maybe, until funding would become available. So that really is kind of the one of the precursors to moving on with whatever the study identifies, whatever the final study identifies, in order to complete that. But you'd have to have
Funding come from?
Well, the whole idea is this. This is, there's two components to that. One is the cost of the study, which we understand may be very comparable to this cost, $5, $6, $7 million, depending on the route, that part of the route, which part of the section, because you wouldn't prove it all at one time, depending on what it is, and then the cost to actually construct it, right? So nobody builds a road like this or improves this kind of road without federal funding, right? That's generally an 80-20 or 90-10 match. That is 80% or 90% comes to the federal government. Those are big dollars. That's the whole reason that we're going through such an expensive study, is that this is not, a construction project or an infrastructure project that Dubois County or Spencer County or the state of Indiana alone can take on, even $75 million, although it's going to do a lot to improve 231, it still doesn't cover all our problems and questions. And so it's expensive to build roads or to repair roads or to expand roads or change intersections. And so that's the question, Nancy, about, Now, the good news is that the federal government is spending money, and there are money coming down that are available. The other good news is for this project is that this project, that is the study when it's completed, will help identify what our issues are, right? And I think that's one of the questions even now is, and that we'll be able to see, right? I'm certain Lockmuller knows, and I'm assuming an INDOT knows, but, the rest of us will know kind of where are the issues that we have, what can we do to improve the traffic flow north and south, through Spencer County and Dubois County for the access to I-69.
I got a question.
Sure, Dave.
In this study, has there been any attempts to figure out how many people this will affect as far as the farmers or land people?
Well, until we know the route, I think that's the question. So I think, but once that recommended route is identified, then we'll certainly know the people who potentially could be in the path of that question. We're still at 1,000 feet versus, or 2,000 feet versus 300 feet, right? So even once the route is recommended, the recommended route is announced, there still could be people, am I in or am I out? Am I something being taken, or what did that look like? So how am I going to be affected? And so we'll have a better understanding, but still not a complete understanding. So
when do we think this would be finished?
Well, again, it's a course of funding, right? I think that's the difficulty, is a funding question, right? And I think the other side of that truly is that when you have a recommended route, depending on where that route is and whether that is improving existing roadways or building new roadways, right? It's much simpler to improve an existing roadway. It's a little harder to acquire, new land, new terrain, and to build the roadway. So I don't have an answer.
One more question.
Yes.
So they start building the road and then they run out of funding. Do they just stop on it until they get more funding then?
Well, that's the other piece, is that, INDOT won't move forward with a project without funding. And that's the idea when Nancy asked the question about Tier 2. They're not going to allow even the study of that section, So I'm not an engineer, I haven't done this, but what I understand from the NDOT folks is that depending on the route selection, they would pick a portion of the route, somewhere along the route that's recommended and finalized, and say, we're going to study this, this 10 miles or 20 miles as a tier 2 and try to improve that area first. Then once that's done, they would move to the next. So they would come up with a plan, a program to complete the project, whatever that plan route is.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, my purpose tonight was just to bring you up to speed, to let you know that, your investment in trying to study this corridor along with the other folks is moving forward. It's really close to seeing a route recommendation that we'll know better kind of when the study comes out, when the recommendation comes out, as to what it's saying, what it's proposing, and hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a final report on what is expected to be the best solution for our north-south traffic issues.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the update.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, next thing on the agenda, we have a department presentation for the fire department. Chief Hoaxang's here.
A little history about the fire department first, and then we'll get into some other interesting stuff. So the fire department was formed in 1896, so 126 years old this year. There have been 15 fire chiefs during all those years. Ran through basically 275 members have joined during all those years, looking back through the records and things like that. So of course, myself as chief, and then we have 2 assistant chiefs, the first being Mike Stewart. And he has been with the fire department for 35 years. And then Josh Dooley is the other assistant fire chief, and he's been with us for 9 years. And then we have one captain, is Jay Eckstein, has been with us for 23 years. And then we have 6 lieutenants, and they vary from all in there. Most of them in their 20-some years have been with us for a long period of time. So with 38 members is a good staff. By city ordinance, we can go up to 40, but staffing challenges are sometimes hard and to get those numbers and to find those people. But so today we're at 38, and it works well for us.
Kenny, what's your capacity?
40.
Oh, sorry, maybe.
Yeah. Yes, we could go to 40 if needed. But today we're at 38, and basically because we've tried to hire and we just haven't found those individuals to fill the need. So under 36 makes it difficult for us because we have 9 rotations that sit weekend duty. Every weekend, one of those officers are on duty and 3 other individuals. If we get under 36, then we can't fill those requirements for weekend duty. The firefighters sit on Saturdays now from 1 until 6. In the past, they would sit on Sundays and things like that, so we no longer do that. So we continue to cut back in order to not lose firefighters. With younger generations and all the activities they have in all the sports and different weekend activities, we lose people because of the being so busy. Our coverage area is the city of Jasper and Bainbridge Township, so just over 32 square miles that we provide coverage. With that, we have the Windsong area that's been annexed into the city, and then also the Brookstone area. That's a coverage area that we provide fire protection to as well. We have a contract with the Bainbridge Township trustee for $30,000 a year. That's paid annually to the city for fire protection, so we cover that area in the township, which is a requirement of the trustee. So we have that as well. Next is our ISO rating, which is really important to the community. We're audited every 5 years, and we're due. So, but I believe because of COVID, they've held off coming into the community. So the ISO rating is made up between the fire department. They look at your fire department, and that's 50% of the rating. They look at your equipment, your engines, your staffing, your training, And then all the certifications, our ladder testing, our pump testing, and all those there's requirements that you have to meet. An example would be our pump testing and our ladder testing, our 2 aerial trucks. Those have to be tested annually. They have to pass certification, and you have to show records of 3 years. If you can't do that, you get no credit for that. If the fire department loses, you gain points by everything that you can meet that they ask for. The more points you get, the lower our rating. So being a Class 4, it reduces insurance cost to the community, not only for residential, but for your industry, your commercial, and other taxpayers. It reduces the cost of insurance. So it's really important that we can keep that rating as low as possible.
Katie, you got a dollar figure on that? How much or do you know?
We don't. One of our firefighters years ago, when we went from a 5 to a 4, the lower the better, his mom's insurance on a home out in the Skyline subdivision, it lowered her insurance $36 for the year. So it's significant if you look at, yes. So if you look at the impact it could be for some of your, your manufacturers in the community, it could be a significant amount. So there's only 17% of the fire departments in the state of Indiana have a Class 4 or better. So that speaks volumes for what we do.
And the sky question, Kenny, how far are we from getting from a 4 to a 3?
We weren't too awful far last time, so there's a possibility that we can do that, which would be a much less number of communities in the state that can meet that.
Sure.
We weren't too awful far away. So in March 26th, the person that audits will put on a class out of Vincennes University on a Saturday, part of the Jasper Fire School, and we will, of course, have several people there. We've also invited our water department because they're a part of this, and our dispatch because they're the other parts that make up this audit. So we will have them there. He will inform you and tell you what he looks for and how to get points and what you can do. There's things we can't do, we can't meet. Every fire department throughout the nation is graded the same, whether you're a big city or a small community. They give you a list of guidelines of what they look for, and some things you can't meet. We can't pre-plan every building in Jasper every year and go out. We don't have full-time staff. We can't do that.
Chief, the 17% that are Class 4 or better, are they all volunteer, or they include those that are full-time?
Mostly full-time. Mostly
Full-time. So here we are with a volunteer situation, really competing at that level.
There's local communities that do not take part in the audit because they can't. Like your smaller communities in the area, they don't have the water supply. They don't have some of the things that's needed. We're fortunate. They look at your coverage area from your fire stations, and if you have a ladder company, which we have ladder trucks down here, so it's a 1.5 mile radius, so they take that circle and they draw it. Here's your coverage area for that station. So if you look at our Holy Family station, our downtown, those stations are a mile coverage because they're just a pumpers compared to a ladder company. So north to south, excellent. Going west, it's where we lose some of our coverage area for our class rating because of that. It's because they look at those coverage areas. So, but anyhow, along with looking at fire and the things that we do and the equipment, the staffing, they look at our structure fires, they look at your response times, and ours are, not bragging, they are excellent. They are truly excellent response times. And then all the equipment, the certifications and stuff they look at. So that's 50% of the rate. 40% of the rate comes from our water department. So not to steal their thunder in any way, but the water department, they do get a really good rating as well in the community. They look at the amount of water available. So the water tower at 17th and Newton and 37th and Newton both hold 1 million gallons of water, have capacity to do that. The water tower across from Snitsmonk is 500,000 gallons of water. Plus we have 2 underground storage wells, one at 7th and McCrillis, 300,000 at the old water plant was down there, and then one at the other water plant, which is 300,000 gallons of water. Underground, available if needed. They look at how much water is available to see, if you have a supply that's going to meet the needs. So they look at those things, and then we have over 1,000 fire hydrants available in the community, which is a really good number. And the water department does their annual flushing every year, twice a year. They look at that to make sure those are being done. They look to see if they document any concerns with the hydrant. They look at the brand. They have to indicate the name, the brand, any defects with it and things like that. So those things are all being taken care of for this audit so that we get a good, as much as possible, and things like that. And then the fire hydrants are all painted different colors for us. A red fire hydrant tells us how big that water line is of the street, or a blue fire hydrant, or things like that. That tells us how big that pipe is under the street. So we look at certain areas, and if we see two hydrants, block apart, and based on what color it is, we may choose to hook on a different hydrant. Or if we need two hydrants, we can do that. Many years ago, when the Rookshire building burned, we were hooked on Main Street in front of Jasper Embroidery, and it wasn't supplying enough water for us, so we went over to the hydrant across the street there by Adventures at the next block down, because Jackson Street has a bigger water line. So we hooked on there, and now we had lots of water. So we look at things like that. So a lot of things factor into the audit so that Jasper can get the best rating. And then the last part of that audit is the dispatch center. So Jasper Dispatch Center, and now we also have a backup center, which some communities may or may not have with the county. They look at that. So that's the reason we've invited the dispatch center, the water department out to this training session so that we can get the amount of credit. The dispatch center, they look at the call volume. They look at the number of positions, how many people are sitting at the station. They look at the generator down there to make sure it's being exercised weekly and things like that, and they have good records on all those things. Our repeater site for the fire department is at the water tower at 17th and Newton. That little building back there, that's where our equipment's in there to dispatch us out for Jasper. So if we're dispatched by the county, then it goes off the Greener Tower, and there's towers throughout the county. So, but just a little information about that. Some items for our budget this year, which were at last year's budget meeting. Of course, we have our new fire engine coming in. It's going to be named Engine 1. Lisa's going to pull that up here for us. So if you go to the website of Ferrara Fire Apparatus, and you click on trucks, and then you go down to production, and it'll list all the trucks that are in process. So when we ordered the fire truck, then you click on Jasper. When we ordered the fire truck, it was a 270-day build time, and they told us that we would probably see it a month early, which is unheard of now with today's everything out there. And now they're telling us it's on their revenue list, which that would be May 17th. And now they're telling us that it'll be on the revenue sheet for them for March. So that means it's going to be delivered to Jasper in March, if they hold that. Not pulling out. So anyhow, yeah.
Please wait.
But you can go to that website and you can see production. Every so often they're going to update pictures of our fire truck. So right now, when it comes up, you'll see the back half of the truck. They'll build that box. And the front part of the truck, the chassis, the engine, the pump, and the drivetrain is being built on the north side. It goes down to the facility. And at some point, when the front gets painted and the back part gets painted, then they'll get to meet each other, and they'll put the box on the back, and then they'll start to finish it up. So at that point, we will go back to the plant to ensure that it meets the needs and it's built the way that we designed it, we spec'd it before it comes back to Jasper.
I think we're updating pictures.
They're working on the truck right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking right 400,000 roughly for this truck. Come in higher than that after the fact. Yeah, fully outfitted.
Yes.
Comes to us ready to go if we.
We are taking some hose and stuff off of a truck that we will sell because it's in good shape yet. The supply line that we will, no, the line that we will take into a structure will be brand new with brand new nozzles, but the supply line that we hook to a hydrant, that will be off of other fire engine that we plan to sell.
Okay.
Kenny, does that new equipment come from that company, or is it, I wouldn't think it would.
No. Some of the things could come off of it, but other things would just be bought through the local dealers. And
And then do they deliver, or do you go get this?
They have to deliver it.
Yeah.
It is delivered to our station, and then they expect payment that day. Like a lot of things. If we need a chainsaw, we buy that locally and things like that. And that way, if we have issues and troubles like that, so anything that we can buy locally like that. The radio was purchased and it was sent down to the company. It came into the local dealer and then he sent it down, so it's down there now. That way, that company will mount it on the dash. They're going to run the cable up in the headliner and mount the antenna on top. So when it comes back here, nobody has to take that back apart. It's all installed there. So everything that's ordered like that is sent there. The middle picture on the top, that is the back of the truck, and we're going to have a reel on there, just like our last pumper did. So in the event if we have a woods fire, a trash, a grass fire and things, there will be a reel there, which similar to a car wash, you can pull it off and it'll have 250 feet of hose connected. So, and then whenever we're done, we push a button and it'll reel back up, things like that. So we build it to fit the community for what our needs are. Our last pump was aluminum. Yep. Yep, that's an aluminum truck. So there's 6 pictures there now. And now, yeah, that'd be the passenger side. Yeah, they're fine. So it is much farther than that in production. So if you go and look at it in maybe a few more days, it'll update it with some new pictures and things like that. If you want to switch back to Gary, I think that's...
Tomorrow morning, sure.
Gary, Indiana has a fire truck now that's being built, and it's much farther along, and you can see where their fire truck's at, all the way at the bottom. So they chose a different color scheme for their truck, but basically the same idea. So their truck is pretty much ready to deliver.
Is that similar type of truck to what we're getting now?
Pumper. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's got the roll-up door in the back and things like that. So anyhow, interesting to see how they do and how they build them, and we'll have pictures then that we can go back and look at down the road if we need to. So other items besides, thank you, Lisa. Other items besides the new fire truck, we did order 10 sets of turnout gear. We were told they were going to take a significant price increase in February, so we ordered those before to beat the price increase. We're also looking at some new radios this year. They'll be the P25 radios, so we can communicate. And then also the Chief's truck, 7 years old this year. It's 83,000 miles on it now, so good trade-in. Before the good price is good on that truck, you have to trade that in and to update that. For next year's budget items, we're talking right now, and we definitely would need to update our thermal imaging cameras. They're getting several years of age on them, and we need to update those. Really important when you crawl in a burning building with the thermal imaging camera, you can see through the smoke. You can see the fire, you can see heat. If someone would be in that building yet, you'd be able to quickly identify them. They are impressive how they work. So we need to update some of those. That's not a major item. That's relatively inexpensive. Probably $8,000 each, maybe $9,000. So inexpensive for what they do.
2 years ago, didn't we?
We did. Yep. We have one that's 2 years old now. So the others are showing their age, and it's another item that ISO requires to be on your fire engine. They have a list of.
Do we have one on each truck?
Not yet. Not yet. No. So ISO is like, not to go back to that, but they require so many flashlights, they require a radio, so many feet of hose to hook to hydrant. They need 1,100 feet of supply line on every pumper to go to a hydrant. So things like that, they need salvage tarps on there, salvage covers they require on there and things. So a lot of things that they require on there as well.
It seems like they kind of help set the standard for what you want to have in your department.
They do. They do. It's whether or not you want to try to meet some of the requests that they have. So, and if we can improve our rating, then it's important to us. And nothing there is like wasted and not being used. It's items that help us. And then our tower truck is 28 years old this year, so it's reaching that time of some decisions there with that. Our ladder truck we spoke about last week one day, it was in need of repairs of the lifting cylinders. We took it to Evansville yesterday, down to the shop to be fixed. He took both of them off because he said it's not much more money, so it was a great suggestion. Replacing the seals in both of those lifting cylinders, and he thinks we may have it back Thursday, tomorrow, if not Friday. So we'll get that back. So it's great to get that fixed, and it was a good idea to check into that. With staffing, it's a lot easier to hire firefighters, and then after that, it's like they get so busy. So many other things that pull them away. But we have a great group of guys, and when something really bad happens, there's a lot of good help out there. So technology-wise, through our GIS department, we have the ability, there's 3 of us on our phone, we can look at every water line in Jasper. It's on a map. We can pull it up. We can zoom in the area. We can see where all the valves are at, all the hydrants are at. We can click on it. You can tell you what size line. They can tell you the hydrant, all about it, the age of it and things like that. Our gas lines are the same way, so if we needed to look at, shutting off a gas valve or gas lines, that all information is out there. And then our Tier 2 reports is also on a map like that. We can look at every facility in our community. It has like the little placards that tells you how dangerous and how, with chemicals and things like that, they are all listed on there. So all the facilities that have those products have to report that to the state. And Jeff Warren takes that information, and it's available on our phone so that we can click on that and see what products are in these facilities. So really important to have that. And then the State Fire Marshal's office, whenever a new building is being constructed or a remodel, they have a code official that will inspect these buildings, and I always go along with them when possible. So every year, annually, they check your nursing homes, your hospital, and then your clubs, your Legion, your VF, and those type of buildings. And then also any new construction that's not a single-family residence. So he's very busy, a lot here. He's got 5 counties that he does that for. So a few weeks ago, we inspected all of our schools, which is required every 5 years. So we went through all those, and then they'll get a list of things that they need to take care of, which they'll get 45 days to make updates. The schools appreciate it because it gets them where they need to be for safety, things like that. And then other things that are going on right now that we're looking at, we've been to the jail a few times. We've looked at that building up there. REC's putting an addition on their building. The River Center is doing a construction project within the building. Zaxby's, we just finished up with Sonic. VUJC has a major remodel going on in their administration building. IFI, Kimball, there's a lot of projects. That's just to name a few of them that are going on right now, plus many more. So, Kirstein's Apartments at Park Place and all those things, they're all inspected by the state. So,
still getting good participation in the fire key boxes?
Yes. Yes, we've got quite a few in there. Actually, those come in really handy for some of the lofts and the Vine Street lofts, and those come in really handy with those. So any construction like that, if they have a sprinkler system or a fire alarm system, we recommend it. They install that as well, and that gives us an earlier access to get into the building. So another thing that our firefighters have that other volunteers don't throughout the state is a retirement program, which is really good. Not a lot of thought in by some of those guys until they have been there several years. But it's a great thing the city does for these guys that other firefighters don't get. So it's a good thing. And then what I handed out tonight is a 3-year breakdown. Last year in 21, total calls was 498. 64% of those are medical. We are transitioning from more fires and alarms and things like that to more medical calls, medical assist. We feel that may go down this year. Memorial Hospital has added another crew from 2 o'clock every afternoon to 10 o'clock at night. So we hear that ambulance going out a lot of times, which we would be going in if they didn't have that in play. So that's been a big plus for us. We hope that makes a difference and reduces our runs for EMS. So
would that just be your first responders?
First responders, yep. So right now we have 22 first responders. They're called. There's three divisions of it. There's EMRs, which are the first responders. They're the basic ones, and then there's EMTs, which have a higher level of training, and then there's paramedics. So we have 2 paramedics, which we are blessed to have those on the fire department, and we have 6 EMTs, and then the rest are EMRs. Yeah, it is absolutely wonderful. 3 of our firefighters are also, their full-time job is on the Scott Township Fire Department in Evansville. That's their full-time job, and their shift down there works out to be 10 days a month, 24-hour shift. And then if they're not down there, then they're home. So, and the knowledge they gain is beneficial as well. So, but anyhow, last year was 498, 64% were medical. Last year was 400, or the previous year in 2020 was 470 calls, and I think it was like 54% were medical. And then the year before that was 413, so you can see an increase in calls. So, and COVID definitely has played a part in that as well. So,
Chief, appreciate the update.
yes,
There's no doubt you're busy,
yes.
just with the fire department alone. And hear from Chief again later on in the year on this code enforcement. So.
Yep. In 2 months, I'll be back, and they just keep running out of code enforcement. So, anyhow, if any questions or something, reach out. Any issues?
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you. Yep. Have a good evening.
Okay. Last thing I have on the agenda is resolution number 2022-2. It's a resolution of the Common Council, City of Jasper, opposing legislation regarding the business personal property tax. And I think this has all been sent out in advance. This is a resolution available for one reading. Could I have a motion to have the resolution read in full or by title only?
Make a motion to go ahead and read by title only, please, Mayor.
I'll second that.
All for title only, and a second from Nancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read resolution 2022-2 by title only?
Resolution number 2022-2, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper opposing legislation regarding the business personal property tax.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt resolution number 2022-2?
I'll make that motion.
Nancy,
I'll second.
second from Kevin. Further discussion. This was suggested through AIM, which we rely on quite heavily for legislative counseling, and one of the key things here is just making sure that we understand that a reduction in the business personal property tax would have a significant impact on our funding, and without a replacement, it would mean significant cuts in what services we would offer. And I think that's the real issue behind the AIM. And without a replacement, in order for the city to maintain its existing services, it would put an unfair burden back on residential property owners. So it would have to be made up somewhere to continue those same services.
Mayor Ames doing this statewide, right?
They're doing it statewide. Yeah.
Mayor, do we know where this bill stands at the current time?
Yeah, it's in committee right now, looking at some revisions, I think. I got a note on it today. I know they're asking that all municipalities reach out to their legislators and senators for the next 2 weeks. So I guess it'll be voted on week after next.
Soon, the legislative session will soon be ending.
Yeah. So I have a motion from Nancy and a second by Kevin. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious if I have not talked with our senator or our representative. Have either of them made any public comments? Is anyone aware?
Early on, I know with Senator Messmer, he was in support of a replacement. Didn't see it going forward. So
Have they offered any models for consideration? I know that's not part of this effort specifically, just simply saying not without a replacement, but do you know of any of the replacement options that have been suggested?
I read about him today, and I wouldn't be able to call right offhand, but it seems some options that are out.
One of the things that I've been told from Baker Tilly is the option of having the state bear the burden, give commercial and industry estate tax credit, rather than having the money come out of, or from the elimination of personal property tax at the local level, have them get a credit at the state level.
And I think that's what the majority in the Senate and possibly the House is they're waiting till next year, really, the budget year, before they'll pass some of these cuts.
Yeah.
I see.
It's been a lot of the discussion is to defer it, kick the can down.
It doesn't necessarily mean they'll still do it, so that's the reason for this is.
Right.
So I guess if it's passed, do we immediately get it to our senators and, yeah. Okay.
This is what, Alan, about 4% of our, it would represent the revenues lost, about 4 or 5% of our actual budget.
Yes.
In that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you look at the operating costs within our departments, park.
Right. Yeah, it would be.
I mean, it's nice to help the businesses out, but like you said, it's affecting the government, so replace it.
So I have the motion and a second. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolution 2022-2 is passed.
This has to be signed.
And it does need to be signed. So with that being the last item on the agenda, is there any other business coming before the council?
Mayor, I had another, just a thought in what's going on worldwide concerning cyber attack protections. Just what kind of things do we have in place in the city? Probably really more in the utilities for any type of cyber attack that could happen, or how are we protected that way?
We use a consulting firm as well as contract with local services. We've used Keller Schrader that does a lot of our cyber security training, and they send out, you probably get emails from them every once in a while that bring you up to speed as to how they might be able to encroach in our servers. But then also locally, Matrix and Egmundi provide some of the services for us and keep us updated with any kind of malware or virus protection. So,
And I assume backups as well.
Backups as well.
Backup.
You might remember about a year and a half ago, there was an attack in Florida on a water treatment plant. And it was because they were using their telephones in order to control remotely. And they were able to hack in, and all those kind of issues are being monitored, and in some cases, you don't want to move forward with technology too quickly.
Yeah.
Sure, there are some advances in the security. So,
One other quick question I had this evening, if you're good, satisfied? Okay. The legislation or the litigation with the opioid, have we had any update from that as of late?
Nothing really has changed lately. The last time we got an update, they were very close to reaching an agreement with the Attorney General's office to change language that they thought was appropriate, and that's where we are.
Happened to catch something on the news about a week ago about the Purdue Pharma family getting a little bit of a stay of another week or 2 week stay before they were going to start hammering them with fines, and I thought.
Yeah.
anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
A motion from Kevin.
Second.
Second here from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.